Okay, so I want to talk about the day. It's been an interesting day with politics. It's been an interesting day with Corona. Um, there's a lot going on in California right now. So we're in a Corona crisis. It's really annoying. It's annoying because you're not supposed to go outside, and then some people are, and they're pretty chill, and they're just doing whatever, and then when I am, I'm kind of nervous. Am I getting some of my hands that I get someone sick with? Really more concerned about that, especially saw my family today, and they're old, so I worry about them. Um, we've had I guess probably a couple thousand cases, but today Gavin Newsom, the governor, predicted that we'd have 25 million cases in California. There's 40 million people. That's an insane amount. Now, he was saying that as part of, hey, Donald Trump, I want the White House to give us $1 billion. Was he exaggerating that number? I don't know, but his math does not add up. They said that he said he wanted 20,000 beds if you're going to have that overflow. But if you do the math, um, I believe I did the math, and it'd be something like at 1.5% death rate, that would be 375,000 people. Anyone that dies, they're going to probably go to the hospital first. What happens with corona is if it gets really bad, your breathing functions shut down, your lungs shut down. You need ventilators, you need oxygen, and you kind of need kind of emergency care if it gets that bad. And then they said, okay, well, we have to get homeless people off the streets. California has a major homeless problem. And whenever the tourists from Europe or Latin or Russia come here to San Francisco, the first thing they say is, what the hell is going on? Why are there so many like crackheads and heroin addicts and homeless people? I thought this was a place with money. And part of the problem is other states will literally send one-way tickets, give their homeless people one-way tickets to come here. But there's a lot of problems. There's a drug problem and there's a psychiatric problem. California has major psychiatric issues. And you have these crazy high rents where it's not that hard to be homeless, especially in American society, which, unlike many other societies, Middle Eastern or Latino, the family doesn't, have a big house that they have all the relatives. Everyone's kind of spread up. We're all a little bit fragile. And the homeless are the most fragile right now. So because we have a pandemic, the people that have jobs and money do not want the homeless people infecting them. So they're like, oh, we better clean that situation up. Yeah, we should have cleaned up years ago, but now we have to clean it up, otherwise it's going to be our well-being at risk. So that's what they think, and now they want to clean it up, and whatever, that's better than not cleaning it up. But they said, the mayor of LA said they're going to repair 6,000 beds. And Newsom is asking for a Navy ship to come that can hold another 1,000 beds. Well, you have like 120,000 homeless people in California, one third of which do not have any shelter whatsoever. So how is 6,000 beds going to help out 43,000 people? You have them all squeezed in one bed? Or are we just taking like the old ones? Well, what about the other ones? It's a contagion. It can get through anyone. So I see some problems. And then, did you hear that you shouldn't take cruises? So let's bring a government cruise and just dock it and have you sleep in those beds. And I'm sure that's not going to develop to be like a human petri dish with everyone getting coronavirus. So there's a lot of problems with this plan. I'm betting that the 25 million won't happen. And let's take a step back and let's look at what we've seen happen so far. China is good news. China is good news because they managed to quell the tide of here. They managed to quell the tide of corona. I'm trying to get you to my computer here so I can actually take a look at this and give you some numbers. But they've done an amazing job really controlling the outbreak. And I guess the better question is, how do they pull that off? Well, I know they really just shut down their manufacturing center, and they had severe quarantines. Italy is trying to do the same thing, but today, or was it yesterday, the amount of dead people in Italy surpassed China. So there's 245,000 worldwide cases of corona so far. 80,000 are in China, and now you have 40,000 in Italy. Well, what's interesting, there is more people that have died in Italy, even though they have half the number of cases. One argument is that Italy has a lot of old people. Maybe so. But keep in mind, China is 1.3 billion people. And Italy's population is currently 60 million people. So China is 20 times bigger than Italy, and Italy now has more deaths. There is a very big difference culturally and governmentally wise between Italy and China. Both these countries aren't necessarily filled with population that follow the rules, honestly. But the Chinese government has the ability to basically act like there's martial law at all times. They're not worried about PR. They're not worried about the other party making them look bad. They're not worried about reality TV. They control the TV. And when they want to have a soldier outside that says, you better go in, otherwise we're going to beat you up or take you to jail, people listen. In this country, people don't listen. In Italy, people definitely don't listen. But now they're listening, at least in Italy. And I predict in this country, if we ever got to anywhere close to the crazy numbers Gavin Newsom is talking about, which again, I don't think we would get to, you can bet that far before then, martial law will be declared and they will have soldiers and you cannot go and walk around the lake or do the many things I see people doing right now. So I don't view this as killing hundreds of thousands of Californians. I think it'll get together before that. What I do think is that there's going to be a lot of hysteria, there's going to be some death, and it's going to look horrible, and it's going to be on TV, and it's going to be very traumatic for people, and it will be very traumatic for the economy. It's going to be a big problem. Just down the street, a bar sent out an email to me saying that, hey, we're going to pay our employees half wages. What we have to close down, they're forcing us to close for the better of society so people don't get contagious, and buy some gift cards. And I thought about that, and that's a nice effort, but that bar's screwed because it's going to be months, and unless their landlord, so that bar probably will not be able to pay rent, and they're going to be forced to break a lease, probably after the landlord gives them a couple months free. Now the landlord has a place. Well, the landlord has a mortgage. How's the landlord going to fill that mortgage? Other businesses aren't trying to move there. Now the price is dropping. Now the value of places is dropping. Now the mortgage ends up being above the cost of the place. You can see how this trickles down. And of course, that waitress is unemployed. So now you have another person looking for a job, and you have this big flux of people looking for a job. I want you to remember that the unemployment rate that they say is not the unemployment rate. That's the rate that people are getting benefits. Well, you only get benefits for about 6 months, and then you don't. And so there's a certain population that will lose their job, and they're very attractive for the job market, and maybe they're young and fit the demographics that people are looking for, and they get a job. What about the people that don't? They don't get any money. They might be homeless. They might be staying at a friend's house. They might just be getting by, but they're not on the books. According to the books, it says that, yeah, they're fine. So it's a problem. There's some fake numbers. And today the Trump administration announced or asked, or however they don't really ask, they tell people, they told the states, don't disclose your unemployment numbers because it'll look bad for the stock market. Well, California doesn't really like Trump. And we announced that we had 80,000 unemployment claims, I think like last week. It's a lot. And whether you announce it or you don't announce it, or you make the people happy in the stock market or not, no matter how good the stock market does, that's not solving those people that are living on the street. This country has had record growth of productivity, and we have record homelessness, and we have a record gap between the rich and the poor. And people talk about this, but when you're in a situation like this, even if you're not homeless, then you get a ripple like we're having right now, which is a real crisis that really no one can stop, or stop easily, I should say. Now things start to collapse. Now it becomes a real problem that you have that student debt. Now it becomes a real problem that the hospital's insurance system is so expensive. Well, now someone can't pay for their health care. If I lose my apartment, I'm not paying for my health care. But then you got to go to the hospital. Now who's paying for that? Now you got credit problems. So it's a trickle-down nightmare. Trump and the administration, mostly Republicans, I guess, they all try to take credit, right? They always try to take credit for whatever. It's always this little silly game between who the good guys, Republicans or Democrats, and the truth is they're both pretty bad. But they came out with a $1 trillion economic plan that they are going to start debating amongst themselves as they pat themselves on the back before they hold each other's hands and say, yeah, we did it. The proposal as of now gives $200 billion to airlines. And honestly, if you don't give money to airlines, they're going out of business because no one's flying, and that's a major problem. It's a very expensive industry to run. $300 billion to small businesses in kind of loans that are kind of like grants. Well, there's 30 million small businesses in the United States. I don't know how they're going to distribute this, but that would mean $10,000 per small business. Okay. That bar now has maybe 2-3 months of rent with that. And then they want to give $1,200 to $2,400 per person, and I think $500 for the kids. And it's interesting because Trump wanted to do this. The Republicans are like, well, we don't want to do that. We want to tie it to the unemployment benefits, which, again, there's a problem with those benefits because they don't like the idea of giving money directly to somebody. It's a philosophical thing, but it's a philosophical thing tied to real economics and real politics. You should give money to people. Don't let them confuse you. This is how it works, right? If you want to revitalize the economy, if you give me, personally, $500 million, you know where most of that money is going to go? Give me like $50 million. You know where most of that money is going to go? The vast majority? In my bank account. I'm going to buy some dope houses. I might even buy some dope houses in other countries. Yeah, run some businesses, but I'm going to be a baller, but I'm going to save for everyone in the future. Now, let's you take that $50 million and let's say you say, okay, we're going to give $100 to 500,000 people. They will pretty much all spend that $100. That keeps the money circulating, that keeps people buying and selling things, and that's better for the economy. But it doesn't sound good for the Republican mantra. And listen, if I got a little money, I'm going to bribe some congressmen. Help me out. Help me out with that $500 million. And there we have the campaign finances. And you have what you have in this country, which is corporations that are really dictating economic policy, a government that's going more in debt, banks, and when I say government's going more in debt, I mean the public is having to one day repay this debt. And the banks have jumped in and very happy to give everyone credit cards and student loans. And don't get me started with student loans. I mean, there's no reason student loans and the student tuition should outpace inflation. And it has by a large portion because the government promised that we will back up the banks that give students these loans for their overpriced, crappy education. So you have this huge bubble of debt. You have a lot of people that just don't have the ability to survive many paychecks. And you have a lot of small businesses. And then you have a few companies like Apple that are super rich that have huge cash influxes. Well, then you go into a recession because things sort of domino. Now you got some real problems. The homeless situation, I'm all about solutions. So I was thinking about, what would you do? Well, what you should have done, instead of building emergency housing, or instead of bringing boats and treating cruises like little crappy hotels, you should build a lot of low-cost, small houses, make communities, put staff to help the communities, give resources, help the mental health system, help the drug system, help people get off of heroin or the opioids they're addicted to, and invest a lot in the community that would help out everybody. If you want to do that today, we have a problem. Well, the problem today is now this coronavirus. So even if we threw a lot of money, we're going to train people, we're going to build. Oh yeah, and by the way, when we do build, you better wear this. Because that guy next to you, he might have corona. It's an issue. I guess what you could do is try to get a bunch of containers from China. You could try some creative ways to get people working. I think it probably is a good idea to get people working. But you got to do things fast. Real fast. That's why they're just merely rushing and buying hotels. So it's a difficult predicament. And I think you have to multi-prong, but the hope is, when this is all said and done, you better have houses for all those homeless people. You better have a way. And remember, you got economy falling apart on top of all this stuff that will fall apart. It's not falling yet, but it's going to fall. So that's a lot to handle. Throw on top of the healthcare system. The healthcare system, even without these crazy numbers that Gavin Newsom is throwing around, is going to be taxed. And it is not created to handle this. It's not created to even try to handle this. Keep that in mind. These are private companies that are thinking about, like every other private company, how can I make money? I love my watch. This company is not making watches to help the world tell time. This company is helping make watches so the people that can afford night watches will give them some money. That is the same with the pharmaceutical companies, the HMOs, the insurance companies. They're not prepared to try to invent vaccines because vaccines are not profitable. And they're not prepared to give the world free testing, or the United States testing. So now we're scrambling for that, which creates an issue. But when we do scramble for that, what about the hospitals? What about the other people? So what I think will happen, one way or another, Bernie Sanders or no Bernie Sanders, the government is going to be forced to throw a bunch of money either into these private hospitals or take them over. They're going to have to do something. Because when you have a pandemic, you can't say, sorry, you're going to die. You can, but they don't want to do that. Why? Because then rich people are going to get sick. So they're like, no, this time we need it. Don't worry about the heart attacks. Fix those poor people quickly before everything gets overloaded. And I don't mean to say it like all rich people are bad, because it's not like that. What it really is we live in a country where they're trying to convince us constantly that if we build a system that's good for everybody, that there are no homeless people, that healthcare is covered, that the prices aren't crazy, then we'll be living in some kind of Fidel Castro's Cuba. When in reality, we would be living in a European-based system where there is a safety net. Italy has her hands full. Italy has some major problems. But people in Italy are not worried about, do I have to pay for my medical bill when I go to the hospital? All they're worried about is there a bed, am I going to live? Which is what, which is the minimum what you should be worrying about, not your bills as well. So I think that one way or another, the silver lining in this is that it's going to convince people that the government needs to get involved and build a foundation for us for when something crazy that we don't predict happens like this. And hopefully along the way, it'll convince politicians. I mean, I think in a way it's a good move. I'm almost surprised the idea of Republicans saying, fine, we'll send a check to people, and if you make more money, you get a smaller check. That's not a very Republican thing to say. And in defense of the Republicans, the Democrats are not that much better. This system has grown under Barack Obama, right? It's not like Barack came over here and fixed all homelessness. No, it's systematic problems because we live in a society where the first priority is how can we boost the corporations, and the second priority is how are people going to buy the corporation stuff, really. So that's my 2 cents. I expect, so getting back to Corona, I expect it to get bad. It is getting bad. New York City was 1,100 cases yesterday. It's 1,800 cases today. They are going to get into Italian lockdown mode. There is a delay on the deaths. We're at 20 deaths today. There was 11 yesterday. But don't get confused and think that those 20 deaths are related to these 1,800 cases. One, you have a lot of cases that we're just finding because we're finally doing testing. And two, in China, it took 11 days from symptoms to die. In Italy, it took 8 days from symptoms to death. So, optimistically, these 20 people were people that got sick 8 days ago, which means what's going to happen with these 1,800 people in New York in 8 days? You guessed it. It's going to be a lot more death. And if you look at the curves, I'm thinking about 400 people or so, something like that. They're going to get up there. And they're going to be very public. And it's going to be scary. And people aren't going to go to work. And we're going to have more economic problems. So, it'll be interesting, to say the least. That is my 2 cents. Stay safe. Don't believe the hype.